The restaurant was one of those expensive places where the silverware weighs more than the food on your plate. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls, and everyone around us looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. I sat at the end of the table, watching my younger brother Victor hold court like he owned the world. Maybe he did, in a way. To family, Victor announced, raising his champagne glass high. His smile was perfect, practiced. To success, to health, and to the people who make life worth living. Everyone clinked glasses. Mom beamed at him with the kind of pride that used to make my chest tight. Now it just made me tired. And to my big brother David, Victor added, turning to me with that smile that never quite reached his eyes. 50 years young today. The table erupted in polite applause. I forced a smile and lifted my glass of water. I'd stopped drinking alcohol years ago when I realized I couldn't afford the good stuff and refused to drink the cheap kind. Mom reached across the table and patted my hand. For a moment, I thought she might say something kind, something that would make this humiliation worthwhile. You know, David, she said, her voice carrying across the table in that way that made everyone stop and listen. You're 50 now. Maybe it's time to accept that life isn't fair. Some people are just born with it, and others. She glanced at Victor, then back at me. Well, others have to make peace with what they have. The table went silent for exactly 3 seconds before someone laughed. Then everyone joined in, like it was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. My hand shook under the table, gripping my napkin so hard my knuckles went white. I looked at Mom, then at Victor's smug face. You're right, Mom, I said quietly. I'm not like him. The laughter died down eventually, and the dinner continued like nothing had happened. Victor talked about his restaurant chain expansion. Mom showed off her new diamond earrings, a gift from Victor. She announced proudly. Someone asked about my work, and I said something vague about consulting that made their eyes glaze over. Nobody really wanted to know. After the cake was cut and the bill was paid, by Victor, of course, we gathered outside the restaurant. The valet brought Victor's BMW around first, naturally. I pulled a small wooden box from my jacket pocket. I'd spent 3 weeks carving it myself in my cramped apartment, working late into the night after my day job. The wood was cherry, polished until it glowed warm in the streetlights. I'd engraved tiny flowers along the edges, the kind Mom used to grow in our garden when I was young. Mom, I said, holding it out to her, I made this for you. She took it with one hand, barely glancing at it. Oh, that's sweet, honey. Then Victor pulled out a long velvet box. Actually, Mom, I have something for you too. Her eyes lit up in a way they hadn't for my gift. She set my wooden box on top of a nearby planter without opening it and grabbed Victor's present with both hands. Oh, Victor, she gasped, pulling out a gold bracelet that caught the light like captured sunshine. It's beautiful. She hugged him tight. He winked at me over her shoulder. I stood there, watching my gift sit unopened among the decorative plants, probably destined to be forgotten or thrown away by the restaurant staff. Thank you, David. Mom called out absently as Victor helped her into his car. It's lovely. But she hadn't even unwrapped it. I smiled. A real smile this time, not forced. It would be the last gift I gave for free. I took the bus home because my car had died 2 months ago, and I couldn't afford to fix it. The ride took 90 minutes through parts of the city that tourists never saw. I didn't mind. It gave me time to think. My apartment was in the basement of Victor's rental property. He'd offered it to me 3 years ago when I was between jobs, said it was temporary until I got back on my feet. Somehow temporary had become permanent, and the favor had become a monthly reminder of who was successful and who wasn't. The ceiling leaked in the corner near my bed. I'd put a bucket there that I emptied every morning. The single window, up near the ceiling, showed only the feet of people walking by on the sidewalk. Sometimes I'd lie in bed and try to guess their lives from their shoes. But the walls, those were mine. I'd cover them with blueprints, sketches, calculations. Years of work, hundreds of designs for sustainable housing, solar power communities, eco-friendly estates that could change how people lived. I'd submitted them to companies, foundations, competitions. Most ignored me. A few sent polite rejection letters. Nobody wants to take risks on unknown designers. One letter had said, I stood in the middle of my basement room, surrounded by my dreams drawn on paper, and whispered to the empty space, someday this will matter. My laptop sat on the fold-out table that served as my desk, dining table, and everything else. The screen glowed in the dimness. One new email. Subject, license agreement offer, confidential. My hand hesitated over the touchpad. I'd gotten scam emails before, promising opportunities that were too good to be true. But something made me click it anyway. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was hope. Or maybe, after 50 years, it was finally my turn. The email was from the European Environmental Foundation, a name I recognized from articles about green innovation. They'd been following my online portfolio for 6 months. They wanted to license my sustainable housing designs for a major development project. I read it 3 times to make sure it was real. The offer was staggering. More money than I'd earned in the last decade combined. But there was a condition that made my heart race. To protect the integrity of the project and avoid complications with competitors or media attention, the creator's identity must remain confidential. All licensing agreements will be signed under a corporate entity of your choosing. Your name will not appear in public documentation. They were offering me wealth and anonymity, success without recognition. Most people would have hesitated. They'd want their name on their work, want the world to know what they created. But I'd spent 50 years being invisible. I knew how to disappear. And more importantly, I knew that the best revenge doesn't announce itself. It waits in the shadows until the perfect moment. I created a new corporate entity that night. DL Holdings. Simple, forgettable, meaningless to anyone who didn't know what the initials stood for. David Leong. The foundation's lawyers sent contracts within hours. I read every page, every clause, every word in the fine print. It was legitimate. It was real. My hand shook as I typed my signature into the digital document. Not from fear this time, but from something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Power. I clicked the button that would change everything. Document signed and submitted. In my basement apartment with its leaking ceiling and window that showed only feet, I had just become wealthy beyond anything Victor could imagine. And nobody knew but me. Please subscribe, like, and share this revenge story for more. Thanks. 3 weeks passed. I went to my consulting job, came home to my basement, and acted like nothing had changed. The money sat in a new bank account I'd opened across town, untouched, waiting. Then Mom called a family meeting. Victor's house was 10 blocks from my apartment. I walked there, carrying a notebook I didn't need, playing a part I perfected over the years. The quiet one, the unsuccessful one, the one nobody worried about. Mom had made tea and set out cookies on Victor's expensive dining table. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her napkin. Boys, she said, I'm getting older and I need to think about my estate. I knew where this was going before she finished her sentence. The family home, the one your father and I bought 40 years ago, it should stay in the family. And after much thought, I decided to transfer ownership to Victor. She looked at him with such pride it made something crack inside my chest. He's responsible, she continued. He's built a successful business. He owns properties. He knows how to manage assets. It makes sense. Victor tried to look humble, but I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. Another win. Another piece of proof that he was the golden child. David, honey, you understand, don't you? Mom asked. I nodded slowly. Of course, Mom. Whatever you think is best. Victor leaned back in his chair, that familiar smirk playing at his lips. He leaned toward me, close enough that Mom couldn't hear. You can always rent from me, big brother, he whispered. Family discount. I smiled at him. That's generous of you, Victor. He didn't see the calculation behind my eyes. Nobody ever did. I left Victor's house and walked without direction, needing the movement to clear my head. The sky had turned gray, threatening rain, but I didn't care. The storm hit when I was miles from home. Cold rain that soaked through my jacket in seconds. I grabbed an old umbrella from a hall closet, one of those cheap ones that fold up small. It lasted maybe 5 minutes before the wind flipped it inside out and snapped the frame. I threw it in a trash can and kept walking. Let's build something even the rain can't touch, I muttered, thinking about my designs, about structures that work with nature instead of against it. A truck roared past, hitting a puddle at full speed. Muddy water exploded across the sidewalk, drenching me from head to toe. I stood there, dripping, looking like I crawled out of a swamp. Then the truck stopped. Brake lights glowed red through the rain. The driver's door opened, and a man got out, running back toward me. "God, I'm so sorry," he said, pulling off his jacket. "Here, take this." "It's fine," I said. "I'm already soaked." He pressed something into my hand instead. A business card, laminated against the rain. Chin Architecture and Design. It read, "We build dreams. Call us." I looked up at the man. He was younger than me, maybe 40, with kind eyes behind rain-spotted glasses. "You look like someone who needs a dream built," he said. "When you're ready, call that number." Then he was gone, running back to his truck, leaving me standing in the rain with his card in my hand. I looked at it for a long time. Then I put it carefully in my wallet. I called the number the next morning. Chunwei answered on the second ring. The muddy guy from the storm. He said when I introduced myself, "I was hoping you'd call." We met at a coffee shop that was too trendy for my usual budget, but I ordered the most expensive drink on the menu without flinching. First time I'd done that in years. Chen listened as I explained my vision. An eco-estate, self-sufficient, beautiful, a place that proved sustainable living didn't mean sacrifice. I showed him my designs on my laptop, watching his face carefully. His eyes widened. "These are incredible. You designed all this." "Nobody wanted them before," I said. "Then nobody was looking properly." He leaned back, studying me. "I don't usually do this, but I don't need to know your story. Everyone's got one. I just need to know if you're serious." "I have funding," I said, "and I need someone who can execute this vision exactly as I've drawn it." "How much funding?" I named a figure that was a quarter of what I actually had. His coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. "You're serious?" "Completely." He pulled out his tablet and started sketching. "Location. Somewhere outside the city. Rural. Private." "How private?" "I want people to know it exists, but not who owns it." Chen's pen paused. He looked at me with new understanding. "Anonymity costs extra." "Not a problem." We shook hands. His grip was firm, honest. "What should we call it?" he asked. I thought about my basement apartment, about Victor's smirk, about Mom's unopened gift. "The Haven," I said. "We'll call it the Haven." Moving out was easier than I expected. I didn't own much, never had. Clothes, laptop, a few books, my drawings. Everything fit in the back of a taxi. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Victor was out of town on business. Mom was at her book club. I waited until I knew the house would be empty, then I packed my things and left. The only thing I left behind was a note on the small kitchen counter in the basement apartment. "Don't wait up." 3 words. That was all the explanation they'd get. I took the taxi to a modest hotel near the construction site Chun had secured. Nothing fancy, but clean, with a window that actually showed the sky instead of people's feet. I sat on the bed and waited for my phone to ring. It took 6 hours. "David?" Mom's voice was confused, not concerned. "Victor said you moved out. Where are you?" "I found a new place," I said. "Thanks for everything." "Well, you could have said something. Victor needs to rent that apartment. He has tenants lined up." "Of course he did. I'm sure he'll manage," I said. "Are you all right? You sound strange." "I'm 50, Mom. Remember? Time to accept what I have." She laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, David, you're so dramatic sometimes. Call me when you're settled." She hung up without saying goodbye. I looked at my phone for a long moment, then turned it off. Outside my hotel window, I could see cranes in the distance, marking the site where the haven would rise. He'll be back in a week. I heard Mom tell someone in the background before the call ended. I smiled. They had no idea. The construction site was 40 miles outside the city, rolling hills that turned gold in the sunset. Chen had found the perfect location, 300 acres of land that nobody wanted because it was too far from everything. Perfect for what I had planned. I visited every day, wearing a hard hat and boots I bought specifically for this. The workers assumed I was just another consultant, someone checking boxes for the mysterious investor. They laid the first stone on a Tuesday morning, a piece of local granite that would form the foundation of the main building. I watched them set it, mixed with concrete that incorporated recycled materials exactly as I designed. "Big project," one of the foremen said, standing next to me. "Whoever's paying for this must have deep pockets." "What do you know about the owner?" I asked, testing the waters. He shrugged. "Not much. Chen says they want privacy. Pays well, though, triple the usual rate for discretion." "What kind of person builds something like this?" The foreman looked at the blueprint spread across a work table, then at the foundation taking shape before us. "Someone who was told they couldn't. Probably. That's usually how it goes. The biggest buildings start with the biggest chips on shoulders." I smiled. "What makes you say that?" "Because happy people don't build empires," he said. "They build homes. This," he gestured at the site, "this is someone proving a point." He walked away to supervise a concrete pour, leaving me alone with his words. He wasn't wrong. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of that first stone, the beginning of everything. "Who's the owner?" Someone called out to Chen across the site. Chen glanced at me. I shook my head slightly. "A man who was told he'd never make it." Chen called back. "Close enough to the truth. 2 months into construction, the haven made the news." I was in my hotel room when I saw the headline on my laptop: "Anonymous investor funds $50 million sustainable housing project." 50 million was what the reporter guessed. They were low by half, but I wasn't correcting anyone. The article featured Chen's quotes about innovative design and environmental responsibility. It mentioned the jobs being created, the technology being implemented. It praised a mysterious benefactor who was changing the future of sustainable living. But no names, no photos, just speculation. My phone rang. Victor's number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Did you see this?" His voice came through my speaker. He was at Mom's house. I could hear her humming in the background. "See what?" "This article. Some idiot just dropped 50 million on a green housing project. Middle of nowhere. Probably going to lose every penny." I heard paper rustling as Mom took the phone. "David, are you there? Look at this newspaper article. Can you imagine having this kind of money and wasting it like this?" "What's wasteful about sustainable housing?" I asked. "Oh, don't start with that environmental stuff," she said. "The point is, whoever this investor is, they're thinking big, creating jobs, making a difference." Her voice changed, got that wistful quality that used to make me try harder. "Why can you think like that? Dream bigger." Victor took the phone back. "She's right. You've always thought small, David. That's your problem." "Maybe you're right," I said. "Probably just another rich fool," Victor continued. "Money doesn't mean brains." I looked at my laptop screen and the article praising my project. "Probably," I agreed. They never suspected a thing. Construction continued through fall and into winter. I split my time between the site and the city, maintaining the illusion that I was still just surviving. One evening, I visited the community college where I taught a night class on basic design principles. It was volunteer work, something I'd done for years because I remember being young and hungry for knowledge I couldn't afford. Maria was there, a single mother in her 30s who'd been struggling through the program. She worked double shifts at a diner and still showed up to every class with her homework done. "Professor Leon," she called out, running across the parking lot. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "Someone paid my tuition for next semester." The administration said it was an anonymous donation, but I know it was you. I'd set up a small scholarship fund, something that wouldn't attract attention, but would help students like Maria. A few $1,000s that meant everything to them, and barely touched my new account. I can't take credit for that, I said honestly. The donation had come through DL Holdings, not David Leong. You taught me something important, she said, eyes bright with tears. You taught me that being kind doesn't mean being small, that helping people doesn't make you weak. You learned that on your own, I said. She hugged me, quick and tight. You'll see what I mean soon. When I graduate, when I build something beautiful, you'll understand what your kindness created. I watched her walk away, her words echoing in my head. You'll see what I mean soon. Soon, everyone would see. Victor's restaurant chain had been his pride for 5 years, 12 locations across the state, always packed, always profitable. Or so everyone thought. I wasn't looking for information about his business. It found me. Chin mentioned it casually during a site inspection. Funny coincidence. My brother-in-law does health inspection for the city. Says some big restaurant chain is in trouble. Multiple violations. Possible fraud in their reports. Really? I kept my voice neutral. Yeah, that Victor Leong guy. The one with all those trendy places. That's my brother, I said. Chen's face went pale. Oh, I didn't know. I shouldn't have said anything. It's fine. We're not close. But I was curious now. A few discreet phone calls to old contacts, people who owed me favors, and the full picture emerged. Victor had been cutting corners for years. Expired ingredients, bribe inspectors, cookbooks. It had caught up with him. The health department was investigating all 12 locations simultaneously. My phone started buzzing with texts. Mom, David, have you heard from Victor? He's not answering. Then, something's wrong with the restaurants. He says it's a misunderstanding. Then, the banks are calling. Do you know anything about business loans? I let the messages pile up, unanswered. 3 days later, another text. They might close all the restaurants. Victor's accountant says 1 bad quarter and he's finished. I imagine Victor in his office, finally understanding what it felt like when your whole world could crumble, when everything you built turned out to be standing on sand. I didn't feel the satisfaction I expected, but I didn't stop what was coming, either. The email to Victor was simple, professional, completely untraceable to me. From DL Holdings Corporate Development to Victor Leong, Leong Restaurant Group Subject, Acquisition Opportunity. Mr. Leong, we represent an investment group interested in distressed but viable food service businesses. We reviewed your company's current difficulties and believe we can offer solution. We propose an immediate capital injection of $2 million in exchange for 60% equity in Leong Restaurant Group. This would allow you to resolve outstanding violations, restructure operations, and maintain ownership stake. Our terms are non-negotiable but fair. Respond within 72 hours if interested. DL Holdings represented me, of course. The company I created, now backed by my sustainable housing profits. I had more money than Victor could imagine, and I just offered him a lifeline. At a price. I watched my email for 2 days, wondering if desperation would override pride. On the 3rd day, his response came. No handouts. I built this business myself and I'll save it myself. I don't need charity from strangers or anyone else. I read it 3 times, feeling something cold settle in my chest. He'd rather lose everything than accept help from someone he didn't know. Because in Victor's world, accepting help meant admitting weakness. Admitting that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as successful as everyone believed. I hit delete and watched his refusal disappear. No handouts, I repeated softly. Fine, I'd remember that. Mom's phone number appeared on my screen. I've been avoiding her calls for weeks, but something made me answer this time. David. Her voice was small, frightened. Where are you? Around. Your number keeps going to voicemail. I thought something happened to you. I'm fine, Mom. Well, I'm not fine. Victor's business is collapsing. The restaurants are closing. He won't talk to me about it. And you just disappeared. She started crying. Soft sob. It should have made me feel guilty. They didn't. Why didn't you ask for help? She continued. Victor needed you. Family should help family. Like you helped me? The words came out before I could stop them. Silence. That's not fair, she whispered. No, it's not, but it's honest. I hung up before she could respond. That afternoon, I arranged a grocery delivery to her address. Premium items, organic, expensive, enough to last a month. I included a note typed on plain paper. Eat well, Mom. DL. She called again that evening. David, did you send groceries? What's DL? I don't know what you're talking about. There was a note. It said DL. Is that you? David Leong. Must be a mistake, I said. But who else would? I have to go, Mom. I hung up again. 2 days later, she called Victor. I knew because he called me. Furious. Are you sending Mom food under fake names? What's your game? I don't know what you're talking about. DL Holdings. David Leong. You think I'm stupid? I think you're stressed, I said calmly. Maybe you're seeing patterns that aren't there. He hung up on me. Good. Let him wonder. The bank notices came on a Friday. Victor's accounts were frozen, pending investigation into financial irregularities. The restaurants were bleeding money. The violations were piling up, and now the banks wanted their loans repaid immediately. Everything Victor owned was suddenly collateral. Jin called me at the construction site. Thought you should know. Your brother's properties are going to auction next week. All of them. All of them. Everything. The restaurants, his house, his rental properties, including that basement apartment you used to live in. I stood on the observation deck overlooking the haven. The main building was taking shape. Solar panels gleaming in the afternoon sun, gardens being planted according to my designs. Who's buying? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Same buyer for all of it. Some company called DL Holdings. They move fast. Cash offers above asking price. Your brother never had a chance. Interesting, I said. David, is that your company? I didn't answer directly. If someone bought those properties, what would happen to the current owners? Eviction, most likely. New owners' rights. I see. Jim was quiet for a moment. This is a revenge part, isn't it? This is a justice part. I corrected. Revenge would be cruel. This is just consequences. I hung up and made one more call to my lawyer. Send the notices. I said, standard eviction terms. 30 days. Even to your mother? Especially to my mother. That night, I didn't sleep. I stood at my hotel window, watching the city lights, and wondered if this was what power felt like. It felt a lot like loneliness. The eviction notice arrived at Mom's house on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't there, but she called me 13 times in the first hour. I let them all go to voicemail. Finally, I listened to one. David, I don't understand. The house is being repossessed. They say there's a new owner. Victor can't help. He's losing everything too. I don't know where to go. David, please, I need you. For the first time in years, she needed me. I waited 3 days before calling back. Mom. David. Oh, God. Did you get my messages? I'm being evicted. Victor too. Everything's falling apart. Where will you go? I asked. I don't know. Maybe Aunt Linda's? But she's in that tiny apartment. And Victor has nothing left. His wife left him last month. David, we have nowhere to go. I let the silence stretch. Mom, you'll figure it out. You're resourceful. David, please. I know I wasn't always fair to you. I know I favor Victor. But I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything? It used to, I said quietly. Then I told her about the letter that came with her eviction notice, the one she'd probably missed in her panic. There's a provision. I said, the new owner offers temporary lodging. A place called a Haven. Did you read that part? The Haven? That environmental project from the news? That's the one. You and Victor report there. They'll give you a place to stay while you figure things out. But why would they? Don't question it, Mom. Just go. Will you come visit us? Maybe. I lied. I hung up and pulled up the security cameras Chun had installed at the Haven. I watched the empty road leading to the estate, knowing that soon my family would drive down that path, coming to me. Finally, the security cameras showed Victor's car approaching the gates of the Haven on a gray morning. His BMW was dusty, scratched. He'd sold his newer one to pay debts. Mom sat in the passenger seat, her face pressed to the window. I watched from my office in the main building as the gates opened automatically, revealing the estate I'd built. 300 acres of rolling hills, solar panels glinting like scattered diamonds, gardens arranged in geometric patterns, buildings that seemed to grow organically from a landscape. Victor drove slowly, his mouth slightly open. Mom's hand covered her mouth. The driveway curved through gardens and past ponds, ending at the main building where Chen's butler stood waiting. James was retired military, dignified, and absolutely loyal. I'd paid him handsomely for discretion. Welcome to the Haven, James said as they got out of the car. Mr. Leong welcomes you. I watched on the monitors as Mom looked around, confused. Mr. Leong? Is that a relative? The owner, James clarified. He extends his hospitality during your difficult time. Victor was staring at the building. This place must be worth. The owner values privacy, James interrupted smoothly. He prefers to remain unseen for now. You'll meet him when the time is right. But we should thank him, Mom said. We should explain. All in good time. Please, follow me to your quarters. I switched camera views, following their progress through the building. Mom kept touching the walls, the furniture, everything she passed. Victor's face was a mixture of awe and confusion. This was better than I'd imagined. They thought they were guests of some generous stranger, some distant relative or unknown benefactor. They had no idea they were living in the world I'd built, the world they said I'd never create. James led them to the east wing, where I prepared their rooms. Not the luxury suites, but not the servant quarters either. Something in between, deliberately chosen to confuse them. These are your accommodations, James said, opening doors to adjoining rooms. Modest but comfortable. Mom stepped inside her room, and I watched her face fall slightly. She'd expected luxury, penthouses, silk sheets. Instead, she got clean, simple, functional. This is nice, she said, trying to sound grateful. Victor's room was identical. He stood in the doorway, frowning. Is Mr. Leong a relative? The name is the same. I couldn't say, James replied. The owner maintains strict privacy. But surely he'll want to meet us? We should discuss payment arrangements, how long we can stay, the terms of... Everything will be explained in time, James said. For now, rest. Dinner is at 7 in the main hall. Attendance is expected. After he left, I watched them through the hidden cameras I'd had installed in the common areas. Victor immediately started exploring, running his hands over the furniture, checking for brand names, price tags. This isn't some distant uncle helping us, he said to Mom. This is a business arrangement. We're probably expected to work or something. Don't be ridiculous, Mom said. We're guests. Guests in the modest rooms? Did you see how big this place is? These are worker quarters, Mom. Nice worker quarters, but still. She sat on her bed, deflating. What have we come to, Victor? We used to have everything. We'll get it back, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I turned off the monitor and leaned back in my chair. Let them wonder. Let them guess. The truth would come soon enough. Dinner that first night was in the main hall, a massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens. 20 other people were there, workers and staff from the estate, eating at a long communal table. I watched from my office as Mom and Victor were shown to seats in the middle, not at the head where guests of honor would sit. Everyone eats together here, James explained. The owner believes in equality of table. How democratic, Victor muttered. The food was excellent because I'd hired the best chef money could buy. But it wasn't fancy, no gold leaf or truffle foam. Just honest, delicious, sustainable cuisine grown mostly on the estate. Mom picked at her food. This is strange. Where's Mr. Liang? He prefers privacy during meals, James said. So we're staying in his house, eating his food, and we never see him? Victor's frustration was building. What kind of arrangement is this? A generous one, said one of the workers, an older woman named Sarah who managed the gardens. You should be grateful. Most people would kill for a chance to stay here. Victor bristled. We're not charity cases. No, Sarah agreed, looking him up and down. You're guests. That's different. But guests contribute. Everyone here earns their stay. Earns. Mom's voice went up an octave. I thought this was temporary housing. Housing, yes. Free ride, no. Sarah smiled. Mr. Liang is clear about that. Everyone works. Everyone contributes. I watched Victor's face turn red. This is a joke. We're not staff. You're broke, a young man said casually. We all heard. That's why you're here. The table went quiet. Mom's face had gone pale. James cleared his throat. Assignments begin tomorrow. 8 a.m. Don't be late. Victor stood up, chair scraping. I need to speak with Mr. Liang. Now. That's not possible. Make it possible. James just smiled. The owner sees all, and he'll speak with you when he's ready. Victor spent the next 2 days trying to find me. I watched him on cameras, searching the estate, asking questions, trying to piece together who owned the haven. He found small clues. My handwriting on a maintenance checklist in one of the equipment sheds, a design sketch in the library that matched my style, a delivery address to D. Liang that a worker quickly redirected before Victor could intercept it. It's him. I heard him tell Mom on the third evening. It has to be. David. This is David's place. Don't be insane, Mom said. David can barely afford rent. He lived in a basement. How would he have money for all this? I don't know, but look at this. Victor showed her a framed blueprint hanging in one of the hallways. Designed by David Liang, Mom read aloud, squinting at the small text in the corner. Victor pointed at it triumphantly. See? His name. Right there. Mom shook her head. That's just coincidence. Liang is a common name. There are thousands of David Liangs in the world. With his exact handwriting. Victor pulled out his phone, showing her photos he'd taken of various documents around the estate. Look at these notes. The way he makes his sevens, that little hook on his capital D. It's identical to David's writing. You're seeing what you want to see, Mom said, but her voice wavered. Our David couldn't possibly. Couldn't what? Succeed. Victor laughed bitterly. Yeah, that's what we always thought. What if we were wrong? I watched him from my office, feeling a strange satisfaction mixed with something else. Anxiety, maybe. The reveal was coming faster than I'd planned. Even if it is him, Mom said slowly, even if by some miracle our David built all this, why wouldn't he tell us? Why make us work like servants? Victor's jaw clenched, because we treated him like one. Mom turned away, and I saw tears on her cheeks through the camera feed. No, she whispered. He wouldn't. He's not cruel. Victor put his arm around her. We were, though, weren't we? I turned off the monitor before I could hear her answer. The formal dinner was my idea. Every month, I hosted influential people from the sustainable development world, showing them what the Haven had achieved. Investors, architects, environmental scientists, journalists. It was good publicity for the cause and good cover for me. Tonight would be special. I'd invited 50 guests, all seated in the grand dining hall. The table stretched the length of the room, decorated with flowers from our gardens, lit by candles made from our own beeswax. At the head of the table sat an empty chair. I watched from the balcony above, unseen behind tinted glass, as guests filtered in. Mom and Victor were among the last to arrive, dressed in the plain but nice clothing James had provided them. They looked out of place among the designers in expensive suits and environmentalists in their bohemian elegance. "Welcome," James announced to the room. "Tonight we celebrate 3 months of successful operation here at the Haven. Mr. Leong sends his regards and his gratitude for your support of this project." "Where's the mysterious owner?" someone called out. "Observing," James said, glancing up at my balcony. A few people followed his gaze but saw only dark glass. He prefers to watch his creation in action rather than accept praise directly. "Humble or paranoid?" someone joked. "Careful," James replied with a slight smile. Mom leaned toward Victor. "Do you think he's up there, watching us?" "If it's David, yes," Victor whispered back. "He always was a watcher, never the star." A servant moved silently through the room, placing gold envelopes at 2 seats. Mom's and Victor's. "What's this?" Mom asked, picking hers up. "Open it after dinner," the servant said. I watched Victor turn his envelope over, examining it. The seal bore my corporate logo, a stylized tree with roots spreading into the letters DL. His hand started shaking. "It's him," Victor mouthed to Mom. "I know it's him." The dinner proceeded. Speeches were made. Achievements were celebrated. All the while, that empty chair at the head of the table remained vacant, a silent presence that everyone kept glancing toward. Just before dessert, James approached the chair and placed a single envelope on it. Inside was a note that read, "Tomorrow, 8 p.m., same place. Come prepared for truth." The next day, I assigned Victor and Mom to work details. Not punishment, exactly. Just the same expectations I had for everyone at the Haven. Victor was sent to the solar panel maintenance crew. Physical work under the sun, checking connections, cleaning surfaces. The kind of labor he'd never done in his life. I watched him struggle with basic tasks, fumbling with tools, sweating through his shirt before noon. The crew leader, a patient one named Marcus, showed him everything 3 times. "You'll get it," Marcus said. "Everyone does eventually." I ran 12 restaurants, Victor panted. I managed hundreds of employees. "And now you're learning how to maintain the technology that powers those operations," Marcus replied. "No shame in starting over." Mom was assigned to the gardens with Sarah, planting, weeding, harvesting. Her manicured nails got dirty within minutes. Her back ached within an hour. "This is too much," she complained. "I'm 68 years old." "Then pace yourself," Sarah said, not unkindly. "Nobody expects perfection, just effort." During lunch, Victor sought out workers who'd been there since the beginning. "Tell me about Mr. Leong," he asked. "What's he like?" "Generous," one said. "Visionary," another added. "Fair but demanding," a third contributed. "But what does he look like? How old is he?" Everyone shrugged. "Never seen him," they said. "He stays private." "That's impossible," Victor insisted. "Someone must have met him." An older worker named Thomas spoke up. "I helped pour the foundation. First day on site, there was this quiet guy taking pictures of the first stone. Dressed like us, hard hat and boots, but something about him was different. Jin called him over once, whispered something. The guy just nodded and walked away. What did he look like? Ordinary. 50-ish, maybe. Thin. Tired eyes that saw everything. Victor's face went pale. That evening, Victor tried to enter the owner's study. The door was locked, but he'd found an old keyring in a maintenance closet and was methodically trying keys. I watched him, wondering if I should stop him or let him discover what was inside. The 15th key turned. The door opened. Victor stepped into my private office, his eyes wide. It was a simple room. Desk, chairs, bookshelves, and walls covered with my old designs. The ones I'd drawn in the basement. The ones that became the Haven. In the center of the desk sat a single photograph in a cheap frame. Our family, 10 years ago. Victor and Mom smiling. Me in the background, slightly out of focus, easy to miss. Victor picked up the photo, his hand trembling. Then he saw the papers scattered across the desk. Contracts with his name on them. Foreclosure notices. Bank statements showing DL Holdings purchasing everything he'd lost. "Oh, God," he whispered. A vase crashed behind him. He spun around, guilty, and saw it shattered on the floor. He'd bumped the shelf in his shock. Underneath the broken porcelain was something else. A business card, old and worn. My business card from 15 years ago when I tried to start my own design firm. Before I failed, before I gave up, before I moved into his basement. Victor picked it up, reading the faded text, David Leong, Architectural Design. No dream too small. The door opened. James stood there, his expression disappointed. "I told you he'd reveal himself when ready," James said. "You couldn't wait." "It's him, isn't it?" Victor's voice broke. "My brother. David owns all this." "Yes," James said simply. Victor sank into my desk chair, still holding that old business card. "And he's been watching us this whole time." "Yes." "Why?" James considered the question. "Perhaps you should ask him yourself. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Don't be late." James found me in the greenhouse, checking on the hydroponic systems we'd installed. It was peaceful there, just a hum of water pumps and the green smell of growing things. "He knows," James said. "Victor broke into your study." I nodded. "I saw. I was going to tell him tomorrow anyway." "He's devastated. The mother, too. She cried for an hour after he told her." "Good," I said, then felt ashamed of the word. Not good, but deserved. James studied me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Sir, may I speak freely?" "Always." "Mr. Leong once lived in a basement," he said slowly, "beneath his brother's property. The ceiling leaked. He had one window that showed only feet." I stiffened. "Did you read my file?" "I didn't need to. I recognized it in you the first time we met. That look people get when they've been invisible too long, when they decided to become a ghost on purpose because at least ghosts have power." I turned away, adjusting a water valve that didn't need adjusting. "You hired me for discretion," James continued, "but also for honesty. So here's my honest thought. Revenge is drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Whatever you're planning tomorrow night, make sure it's justice, not suicide." "They humiliated me," I said quietly, "for years. Every family dinner, every birthday, every holiday. I was the punchline to their success story. And now you're the author of theirs." James said, "You've already won. The question is, what kind of winner do you want to be?" He left me alone with the plants and my thoughts. I thought about Victor's face when he found my old business card. I thought about Mom crying. I thought about the mun I'd been in that basement and the mun I'd become. Tomorrow night, they'd learn everything. I just had to decide what I wanted them to learn. The gold envelopes arrived at dawn, slipped under their doors while they slept. Inside, a single card with embossed letters. "Formal dinner tonight, 8 p.m. Grand Dining Hall attendance required. DL." Mom called Victor's room immediately. "He's ready to reveal himself." "I already know who he is," Victor said. "The question is what he wants." "Maybe he wants to forgive us," Mom said hopefully. "Maybe this was all a test." Victor laughed bitterly. "Mom, we're living in his estate, working his gardens, eating at his table. We lost everything and he bought it all. This isn't a test. It's a judgment." They spend the day in nervous preparation. Mom tried on every outfit in her small closet 3 times. Victor paced the grounds, rehearsing speeches, apologies, explanations. I watched them from various cameras, feeling the weight of what was coming. Chin called at noon. "You ready for this?" "No," I admitted, "but it's time." "What are you going to say?" "The truth. All of it." "And then what?" I didn't have an answer. At 6 p.m., guests began arriving. The same influential people from before, plus journalists this time. I'd invited the press specifically, wanting witnesses to whatever happened tonight. At 7:30, James knocked on my office door. "It's time to get ready, sir." I looked at myself in the mirror. 50 years old, gray at the temples, lines around my eyes from squinting at blueprints in bad light. I looked tired. I looked like someone who'd earned his success the hard way. How do I look? I asked James. Like a man about to change his life. He said, "Again." I put on the suit I'd bought for this occasion. Nothing too expensive, just simple and well-made. At 7:55, I stood behind the curtain near the head of the table, listening to the crowd murmur and speculate. At 8 o'clock exactly, the lights dimmed. It was time. The dining hall fell silent as a spotlight illuminated the head of the table. The chair that had been empty all these months slowly turned, revealing me. "Good evening," I said quietly. The room erupted in whispers. Cameras flashed. At the middle of the table, Mom's hand flew to her mouth. "David," she whispered. Victor sat frozen, his face unreadable. I stood, walking to the podium James had set up. My hands shook slightly, so I gripped the edges to steady them. "My name is David Leong." I began. "I'm 50 years old. I'm the owner of the Haven, the founder of DL Holdings, and the architect of everything you see around you." More whispers. A journalist was frantically typing notes. "I'm also the brother who lived in a basement for 3 years. The son who was told at his 50th birthday dinner that he should accept that life isn't fair. The man who was called a failure so many times he almost believed it." Mom's face crumpled. Victor stared at his plate. 6 months ago, I had nothing. A basement apartment with a leaking ceiling and a window that showed only people's feet walking by. I had designs nobody wanted and dreams nobody believed in. I pulled up a screen behind me, showing my old blueprints, the ones I'd drawn on cheap paper. But someone believed. The European Environmental Foundation licensed my designs. They gave me the capital to build this. I gestured around the room, and they gave me something more valuable, anonymity. I advanced the slide to show contracts, transactions, the paper trail that led from David Leong to DL Holdings. While my family celebrated my brother's success, I built an empire in silence. The room was absolutely still. And when my brother's restaurants failed, when my mother lost her home, I bought everything. Not out of generosity, not out of kindness. I looked directly at Victor. Out of revenge. The word hung in the air like smoke. Revenge. Raw, honest, ugly. I wanted them here. I continued, my voice steady now. I wanted them to see what I built, to work in my gardens, to maintain my solar panels, to eat at my table as workers, not family. I advanced the slides, showing documents that made the journalists lean forward. These are the property transfers. My brother's restaurants. My mother's house. The rental properties, including the basement I lived in. All purchased by DL Holdings. All now mine. Victor's face had gone gray. Mom was crying silently. My brother once told me I could rent from him. Family discount. I smiled without humor. Now he works for me. No discount. A journalist raised her hand. "Mr. Leong, this is an incredible story of success rising from adversity. But why make them come here? Why not just cut them off completely?" "Because," I said, "cutting them off would be mercy. This is justice." I pulled up the next document. The contracts I'd offered Victor to save his restaurants. I tried to help, I said. DL Holdings offered to bail out my brother's business. Fair terms, generous even. He refused. He said, and I quote, "No handouts. I don't need charity from strangers." The room gasped. Victor's head dropped into his hands. So I let him fall. I watched his empire crumble. Then I caught him at the bottom and brought him here. Not to destroy him, but to give him what he gave me, humility. I turned to face my mother directly. "You said I was 50 and should accept that life isn't fair. You were right. Life isn't fair. But neither is family, apparently." Mom stood up, trembling. "David, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? I asked, my voice cold. For favoring Victor? For dismissing my dreams? For laughing when you said I'd never be as successful as him? All of it, she sobbed. All of it. The room watched this intimate devastation play out like a tragedy on stage. I gripped the podium harder, feeling my carefully constructed composure starting to crack. This was supposed to feel triumphant, victorious. Instead, it just felt heavy. For 30 years, I said, my voice rising, I watched you celebrate every one of Victor's achievements while overlooking mine. When he opened his first restaurant, you threw a party. When I got my architecture license, you forgot to call. Mom was openly weeping now. I didn't forget. I just thought. You thought it wasn't important. I finished. Because I wasn't important. I was the quiet one. The one who didn't shine as bright. The acceptable loss in your family success story. I advanced to another slide. Photos I kept from family gatherings over the years. In every single one, I was slightly out of frame, slightly blurred, easy to miss. I'm literally invisible in my own family photos, I said, pointing at them. That's how little I mattered. Victor finally looked up. David, I didn't know you felt. Didn't know. My voice cracked. You told me I could rent from you. You lived above me while I lived in a basement with a leaking ceiling. You knew exactly how I felt. You just didn't care. The journalists were eating this up. I could see the headlines forming in their minds. Silicon Valley revenge story or from basement to billionaire. I didn't care about the headlines. So I built this place, I continued, gesturing to the estate around us. Not just to prove you wrong. Not just to get rich. I built this because while you laughed at my dreams, I never stopped believing in them. I pulled up the final slide. The speech I prepared for this moment. You said I'd never be as successful as my brother. You were right. I'm not like him. I didn't build my success on shortcuts and fraud. I didn't create wealth by exploiting others. I built something that matters. Something sustainable. Something that will outlast all of us. The crowd erupted in applause. It felt wrong somehow, like they were missing the point. This isn't a redemption arc, I said, silencing them. This is a reckoning. The applause died. The room waited. I looked at my mother, then at Victor. They looked small, broken, nothing like the confident people who'd mocked me at that birthday dinner. I could destroy you completely, I said quietly. I own everything you have left. Your rooms here, your jobs, your food, all of it comes from me. One word and you're homeless again. Mom's sob caught in her throat. Victor closed his eyes. But I'm not going to do that, I continued. Not because you deserve mercy. You don't, but because I'm not you. I descended from the podium, walking slowly toward their seats. The cameras followed me. The journalists held their breath. You're going to stay here, I said, but not as guests, as workers. You'll maintain the solar panels, tend the gardens, learn how to build instead of just consume. And you'll do it not for punishment, but for redemption. Redemption. Victor's voice was hoarse. After what we did? Not my redemption, I said. Yours. You need to learn what it means to create value instead of extracting it. To contribute instead of taking. To see the people around you as equals, not servants. I turned back to the crowd. My brother built his success on exploitation. Underpaid workers, bribe inspectors, corners cut until the whole thing collapsed. My mother enabled it, praised it, held it up as the model I should follow. But I chose a different path. Sustainable, ethical, fair, and I'm giving them the chance to learn that path too. James stepped forward, handing me 2 folders. These are your employment contracts, I said, placing them in front of Victor and Mom. Standard wages, standard hours, standard benefits. The same as every other worker here. Sign them or leave. Those are your only options. Victor picked up his folder with shaking hands. We deserve worse. I know, I said, but this isn't about what you deserve. It's about who I choose to be. The journalists left eventually, their notebooks full, their cameras satisfied. The other guests filtered out, murmuring about the spectacle they'd witnessed. Soon it was just James, Chen, my family, and the regular staff. Victor and Mom sat at the table, contracts untouched, looking shell-shocked. "You can take tonight to decide," I said. "Tomorrow morning, I need an answer." I started to leave, then stopped. "And Mom, that wooden box I gave you at my birthday dinner, the one you never opened, it contained a necklace I carved from the wood of our old backyard tree. The one Dad planted before he died. I wanted you to have something from him." Her face crumpled. "David." "Good night," I said, and left. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I walked the grounds, checking on systems that didn't need checking, reviewing plans that were already perfect. At dawn, I watched from my office as Victor emerged from his room. He walked to the solar panel array, the one he'd been assigned to maintain, and started working. Not because anyone told him to, not because his shift had started, just working. An hour later, Mom appeared in the gardens, kneeling beside Sarah, learning how to prune roses properly. They'd made their choice. By the end of that first week, something strange started happening. Other workers stopped whispering about the owner's family. They started treating Victor and Mom like colleagues. "Good job on those panels," Marcus told Victor. "You're getting faster." "These tomatoes are perfect," Sarah said to Mom. "You have a real gift for this." I watched Victor's face when Marcus complimented him. He looked surprised, then pleased in a way I'd never seen before, like he'd forgotten what it felt like to be valued for his actual work instead of his status. A reporter requested an interview about the mysterious family dynamics at the Haven. I declined, but the story leaked anyway. Local news picked it up, then national outlets. "Failed businessman finds redemption at brother's estate." The headlines made it sound wholesome, heartwarming. They missed the complexity, the pain, the messy reality of it all. But maybe that was okay. Maybe some stories needed to be simplified for public consumption. The real story was happening here, in the daily routine of work and growth. 3 weeks after the revelation, Victor approached me during morning rounds. I was inspecting the new water filtration system when I heard his voice. "David." I turned. He looked different, thinner, tan from working outside, hands rough from labor. "Victor, can we talk?" I gestured to the bench near the koi pond. We sat, watching the fish circle lazily in the morning light. "I want to fix what I broke," he said quietly. "Not just between us. Everything. The way I ran my business, treated my employees, built my life on shortcuts. I want to learn how to do it right." "Why?" "Because working here, actually creating something instead of just managing people, I realized I never built anything. I just leveraged other people's work and took credit. You built this." He gestured at the estate. "You actually made something real." I didn't respond immediately. A cloud passed over the sun, casting us in brief shadow. "It's not about buildings," I said finally. "It's about the people. Every person here is paid fairly, treated with respect, given opportunities to grow. That's what makes it real." "Teach me," Victor said. "Please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway." I studied him, looking for manipulation, for an angle. Found only exhaustion and honesty. "You start by shutting up and listening," I said. "Really listening. To the people who actually do the work. They know more than you think." He nodded slowly. "I can do that. And you accept that this will take years. You don't rebuild character in a month." "I have time. It's all I have left." I stood up, preparing to leave, then paused. "Victor, that basement you let me live in? The one with the leaking ceiling." He flinched. "I'm sorry about that. I converted it into a studio for artists who can't afford rent. They live there for free while they develop their work. Just thought you should know." I walked away before he could respond. The storm came on a Tuesday, one of those violent summer thunderstorms that turned the sky black at noon. Wind bent the trees horizontal. Rain came in sheets so thick you couldn't see 10 feet ahead. Everyone sheltered in the main building except Victor. He'd been working on the solar panel array when the storm hit, and instead of running for cover, he stayed. "The securing bolts are loose," he shouted to Marcus over the wind. "If we don't fix them now, the whole array could tear apart." "It's too dangerous," Marcus yelled back. "Leave it." But Victor was already climbing the framework, wrench in hand, trying to tighten connections as the wind tried to rip him off. I saw it all from my office window. So the moment a support beam, weakened by the wind, started to give way, saw it begin its terrible fall toward where Victor was working. I was running before I realized I'd moved. Out of my office, through the building, into the storm. Rain blinded me instantly. Wind pushed me back. "Victor!" I screamed, but the storm ate my voice. I reached the array just as the beam crashed down. Victor looked up, saw it coming, tried to jump clear. Almost made it. The beam caught his leg, pinning him to the platform. He screamed. I climbed up, rain making every grip treacherous. Marcus was right behind me, and Sarah, and James. All of us fighting the storm to reach him. "I got you," I said, gripping Victor's arm. "I got you." "The array," he gasped through pain. "We have to save it." "Forget the array. It's your dream," he said, blood mixing with rain on his face. "Everything you built. I can't let it." "You're my brother," I heard myself say. "Let me save you." Together, we lifted the beam. Inch by agonizing inch, we freed his leg. Then we were carrying him down, all of us holding on, the wind trying to throw us for the ladder. Mom was waiting at the bottom, screaming Victor's name. We got him inside just as another beam crashed where we'd been standing. The paramedics came, declared Victor's leg broken but not shattered. "Lucky," they said. "Few more inches and he'd have lost it." I stood in the medical room, watching them set his leg, feeling adrenaline drain from my system and leave me shaking. "Why did you do that?" Mom asked Victor. "Risk your life for some solar panels." "Because they weren't just solar panels," Victor said, his face pale with pain. "They were David's, and I destroyed enough of his dreams." The doctor gave him something for pain and left us alone. "I'm sorry," Victor whispered, his eyes finding mine. "For everything, not just the obvious stuff. For never seeing you. For being blind to your worth. For," his voice broke, "for being a terrible brother." I pulled up a chair, suddenly exhausted. "I was going to let you fall. You know, when your restaurants were collapsing. I had the power to save you earlier. I chose not to." "I know," he said. "James told me. You wanted me to feel what you felt." "Yes." "Did it work?" I thought about watching him struggle on the cameras, seeing him learn humility the hard way, witnessing his pride dissolve day by day. "I don't know," I admitted. "Revenge is supposed to feel satisfying. It just feels tired." Mom, who'd been silent, spoke up. "David, that wooden box. Do you still have it?" "It was thrown away by the restaurant staff." I looked. She pulled something from her pocket. My carved wooden box, battered but intact. I went back for it. The next day. I kept it with me every day since. She opened it. Inside was a necklace I'd carved, and beneath it, pressed flowers from our old garden, the ones Dad had planted. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "I failed you as a mother. I let my pride in Victor blind me to your worth. I can't undo that." "No," I agreed. "You can't." "But can I try to do better?" I looked at Victor, grimacing in pain from saving my solar array. At Mom, finally holding the gift I'd made her. At the life I'd built from their rejection. "Yeah," I said quietly. "You can try." Victor's recovery took weeks. I had him moved to better quarters, against his protests, where he could rest and heal properly. Mom practically moved in with him, tending to his needs with a dedication I'd never seen her show before. I visited every day, checking on his progress, bringing books from the library, playing chess that he always won. "You let me win," he said on the third game. "I'm bad at chess," I corrected. "You designed this entire estate. You're not bad at strategy." Fair point. Maybe I just prefer building to battling, I said. One afternoon, he asked about my designs. The original ones, before the Haven. I brought them up on my tablet, showing him the sketches I'd made in that basement apartment. These are brilliant, he said, scrolling through them. Why didn't anyone want them? Because I was nobody. Unknown designers don't get chances. But now you're somebody. Now I'm DL Holdings. It's different. He was quiet for a while. I'm nobody now, too, he said finally, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. How do you figure? Because when you're nobody, you have to actually be good. You can't coast on reputation or connections. You have to build real value. He looked at me, like you always did. Outside his window, I could see workers rebuilding the section of solar array damaged in the storm. Marcus was overseeing it, teaching newer workers the proper techniques. I want to help with that, Victor said. When I can walk again, I want to finish what I started. You almost died for those panels. No, he corrected. I almost died trying to protect something you built. There's a difference. Mom came in with lunch, homemade soup from vegetables she'd grown herself. Eat, she commanded, in that mother voice that transcended all resentment. We ate together, the three of us, in comfortable silence. It felt normal in a way nothing had felt normal in years. Like maybe, possibly, we were becoming a family again. Just a different kind. 6 weeks after the accident, Victor returned to work. Light duty at first, mostly teaching newer workers about the systems he'd learned. He was good at it, I realized. Patient, thorough, encouraging. You should have been a teacher, I told him one day. Maybe I will be, he said, when I'm done being a student. The footage from the storm had leaked somehow. A security camera had caught me running into the chaos to save Victor. The video went viral within days. Billionaire risks life to save brother who mocked him, the headline screamed. The comments were split between people calling me a saint and people saying I was a fool. I ignored both groups. But something unexpected happened. The video resonated with people. They saw themselves in it, saw their own family complications, their own struggles with forgiveness and resentment and love. Letters started arriving at the Haven. Hundreds of them, then thousands. People sharing their stories, asking for advice, thanking me for showing that reconciliation was possible. I didn't know what to do with them until Mom made a suggestion. Answer them, she said. You built this place to teach sustainability. But people need emotional sustainability too. Teaching them how to rebuild relationships, that's just as important. So I started a foundation, the Leong Academy of Second Chances, focused on teaching both environmental sustainability and personal growth. Free programs for people trying to rebuild their lives, their relationships, their sense of self-worth. Victor wanted to be involved. Let me help, he said. I know what it's like to fall. Maybe I can help people get back up. The first class started 3 months later. 20 people from all backgrounds, all with stories of failure and redemption. Victor taught a session on humility. Mom taught one on recognizing neglect. I taught one on believing in yourself when nobody else does. A journalist attended, doing a follow-up story. She approached me after. This is incredible. You've turned your revenge story into something healing. It was never about revenge, I said, though we both knew that was a lie. It was about justice. And now it's about grace. The formal confession happened on a Saturday morning, unplanned. We gathered the workers for a routine meeting about expansion plans when Victor stood up. Before we start, he said, his voice shaking, I need to say something. Everyone turned to look at him. I tensed, unsure what was coming. You all know I'm David's brother. You know I work here now, but you don't know the whole story. He took a breath. I was a terrible person. I built a business on exploitation, cut corners, bribed inspectors, underpaid workers. When it collapsed, I blamed everyone but myself. The room was silent. My brother lived in a basement beneath one of my rental properties. The ceiling leaked. The window barely let in light. I charged him rent and called a favor. I mocked his dreams while celebrating my own success. His voice broke, and when he needed family, I gave him cruelty instead. Mom stood up beside him, and I was worse. I'm his mother. I should have protected him, believed in him, celebrated him. Instead, I dismissed his achievements and praised his brothers. I told him on his 50th birthday that he should accept he'd never be successful. Tears ran down her face. I broke my son's heart over and over, and he still saved us when we had nothing. Victor continued, David could have left us homeless, could have watched us suffer and called it justice. Instead, he brought us here, gave us work, gave us dignity we didn't deserve. And when I almost died trying to protect his dream, he risked his life to save me. He looked at me, standing at the back of the room. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm grateful for the chance to become someone who might deserve it someday. The workers sat in stunned silence. Some knew parts of the story from the viral videos and news articles, but hearing it raw and unfiltered, directly from Victor's mouth, was different. Marcus stood up. I've worked construction for 30 years. I've seen a lot of bosses. Good ones, bad ones, everything in between. Mr. Liang here. He pointed at me. He's the first one who ever asked my opinion, who listened when I said something could be done better, who paid me more than he had to because it was fair. Sarah stood next. I lost my farm 5 years ago. Couldn't compete with big agriculture. I thought my live growing things was over. David hired me anyway, let me design these gardens from scratch, trusted my expertise. He gave me my purpose back. One by one, workers stood and shared their stories. The chef who'd been blacklisted for reporting health violations at his previous job, the electrician who'd aged out of traditional employment, the single mother who needed flexible hours. All of them found by me, hired by me, valued by me. This place isn't just a sustainable estate, Marcus said. It's a community of second chances. And if the owner can give his own family a second chance after what they did, then this place really stands for something. The meeting dissolved into conversations, people approaching Victor and Mom not with judgment, but with understanding. Many had their own stories of family pain, of betrayal and reconciliation. I slipped out during the commotion, needing air. James found me by the pond an hour later. That was unexpected, he said. Victor's full of surprises lately. How do you feel about it? I watched the koi swim their endless circles. Like I wanted them humiliated, but now that it's happened, I just feel sad. That's called growth, sir. It's uncomfortable. James smiled. The best growth usually is. Mom asked to walk the grounds with me that evening. Just the two of us, like we used to do in the old garden when I was young, and Dad was still alive. We walked in silence for a long time, past the solar arrays and through the vegetable gardens, along the paths I designed to flow with the natural landscape. Your father would be so proud of you, she said finally. Would he? He always saw something in you that I missed. He used to say you had quiet strength, the kind that builds instead of boasts. She stopped walking, turning to face me. I was so busy looking at Victor's shine that I never saw your substance. Why? The question came out more hurt than I intended. Why wasn't I enough? She was quiet for a long time. Because I saw your father in you, the dreamer, the idealist, the man who believed in building things the right way even when it was harder. Tears filled her eyes, and I watched the world break him for it. He died disappointed. David, his business failed, his dreams collapsed, and I couldn't save him. So you pushed me away. I tried to protect you by steering you toward practical success. Victor's way seemed safer. I thought if I could make you more like him, you'd be happier. She laughed bitterly. Instead, I just made you invisible. We reached a memorial garden I'd built, a quiet space with native plants and a simple stone bench. I carved Dad's name on a plaque there, along with his favorite quote, "Build what matters." Mom sat on the bench, running her fingers over Dad's name. I raised a son who was rich in pride and another who was rich in soul. I celebrated the wrong one. I sat beside her. Victor's changing. Because you gave him the chance to. You could have destroyed him. You had every right. Rights don't make you happy, I said. They just make you right. She took my hand, something she hadn't done in years. Her skin was rough now from garden work, nails broken and dirty. The manicured softness was gone, replaced by the hands of someone who actually created things. Can you forgive me? She asked. Not today. Maybe not ever completely, but someday. I looked at our hands together, hers aged and weathered, mine still learning how to hold without grabbing, how to build without controlling. I'm working on it, I said. She nodded, tears falling freely now. That's more than I deserve. We sat there as the sun set over the haven, two people learning how to be family again, one painful conversation at a time. The announcement came 3 months later, at the board meeting for the haven's expansion. Chin had drawn up plans for a second campus. There's one focused specifically on education and rehabilitation. We proposed a Liang Academy of Second Chances, Chin said, pulling up renderings on the screen. A full educational facility teaching sustainable practices, ethical business, personal development, and vocational training. The board members leaned forward, intrigued. The curriculum would cover everything from environmental science to conflict resolution. I added, we'd offer free programs to people who've made mistakes and want to rebuild. Ex-convicts, failed entrepreneurs, anyone who society has written off. Who would teach? Someone asked. People who've lived it, Victor said, speaking up from his seat at the table. I'd given him a minor position on the board, over some objections. People like me, who failed and learned from it. Real teachers with real experience. And we'd name it after your family, another board member asked. After everything that happened? I pulled up the final design for the main building's entrance. Carved into the stone above the doors, the Liang Academy of Second Chances, founded by David, Victor, and Margaret Liang. All three of our names. Equal size. Equal placement. Mom gasped. David, you can't. I don't deserve. Nobody deserves anything, I interrupted. We build what we can with what we have. And what we have is a family that broke and learned how to rebuild. That's worth something. Victor's eyes were wet. You're putting my name on this? Your story is part of mine, I said simply. We teach people about second chances by being living proof they're possible. The board voted unanimously to approve. Construction would begin in spring. After the meeting, the three of us stood outside, looking at the land where the academy would rise. This is your legacy, Mom said. Not just buildings. Transformation. It's our legacy, I corrected. All three of us. Victor put his arm around my shoulder. From a basement to this. How did we get here? One painful step at a time, I said. Was it worth it? The pain, the revenge, all of it. I thought about that first stone laid in the ground, about every humiliation that drove me forward, about the moment I dragged Victor from that falling beam. Ask me again in 10 years, I said, when we see what grows from this. The grand reopening gala was held on a perfect evening in May, exactly 1 year after the confrontation that changed everything. 500 people gathered in the main hall, spilling out onto the terraces, celebrating not just a building but a transformation. Journalists were there, of course. The story of the Haven had become legendary. Books were being written. A documentary was in production. Everyone wanted a piece of the narrative. But tonight wasn't about the story. It was about the people who lived it. I stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. So many faces. Workers from the Haven. Students from the new academy. Family members of people we'd helped. And in the front row, Victor and Mom, dressed simply, smiling genuinely. Thank you all for coming. I began. 1 year ago, I stood in this room and called this moment a reckoning. I was angry, hurt, and determined to prove my worth to people who dismissed me. I paused, letting the memory settle. I thought success meant making them see what they'd missed, making them regret how they'd treated me, making them small so I could finally feel big. Victor nodded slowly, remembering. But I was wrong. That's not success. That's just revenge with better lighting. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. Real success isn't the noise people make when you win. It's the silence that follows when you forgive. It's the space you create for growth, for change, for people to become better versions of themselves. I gestured to Victor and Mom. My family hurt me deeply. 4 years. And when I had the power to destroy them, I chose something harder. I chose to give them the chance to rebuild. Not because they deserved it, but because I wanted to be someone who could. The crowd was silent now, listening. The Haven and the Liang Academy aren't monuments to my success. They're proof that broken things can be repaired. That failure isn't final. That family is what you build, not what you're born with. I pulled up images on the screen behind me. Students learning sustainable agriculture. Ex-convicts designing solar installations. Single parents coding new environmental software. Victor teaching business ethics. Mom leading meditation sessions in the garden. These are second chances made real. These are dreams that refuse to die. These are people who society wrote off, given the tools to write themselves back in. My voice caught, and that includes me, the kid who lived in a basement, the mun who was told he'd never measure up, the brother who almost let revenge poison what could have been reconciliation. I looked directly at Victor. You asked me once what kind of person builds something like this. I told you it was someone proving a point. I was wrong about that too. What kind of person builds this? I gestured to everything around us. Someone who learned that the best revenge is becoming someone you're proud to be. Someone who discovered that helping others rise doesn't make you smaller. Someone who finally understood that success isn't defeating your family. It's helping them discover who they could have been all along. The crowd erupted in applause. People stood. Cameras flashed. But I was only looking at 2 people. Victor was crying, not hiding it, letting everyone see. Mom had her hand over her heart, mouthing thank you over and over. I stepped down from the podium and walked to them. We embraced, the 3 of us, imperfect and broken and trying. In that moment, I finally understood. The Haven wasn't built from my pain. It was built from my healing. 5 years later, I stood in the same spot where we laid the first stone of the Haven. The estate had grown beyond my wildest designs. The academy had graduated over 200 students. 3 more campuses were under construction across the country. But more importantly, lives had changed, including mine. Victor ran the academy now, using his story of failure and redemption to inspire students who thought they were beyond saving. He was good at it, natural, finally doing work that mattered instead of work that just looked impressive. Mom had written a book about recognizing emotional neglect in families. It became required reading in family therapy programs. She spent her days counseling parents who were making the same mistakes she'd made, helping them see their invisible children before it was too late. And me? I designed systems. Not just buildings anymore, but frameworks for second chances, structures that supported growth, foundations that held even broken things. Chin found me by the memorial garden, where I'd been standing for an hour. Thinking about your dad? He asked. Thinking about everything, I said. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if that European foundation hadn't found my designs. If I'd stayed in that basement forever. You wouldn't have, Chin said with certainty. You were never meant to stay small. The basement wasn't your destination. It was your foundation. I smiled at the metaphor. You're getting philosophical in your old age. I learned from the best. We walked back toward the main building together, past gardens that Mom had planted, solar arrays that Victor had maintained, structures that students had helped design. Do you ever regret it? Chin asked, not destroying them when you had the chance? I thought about Victor teaching a class on ethical business practices, about Mom hugging a crying parent who'd finally understood their child's pain, about the wooden box she still carried with her everywhere, my gift finally treasured. Every day I'm grateful I didn't, I said. Destruction is easy, creation is hard, but only one of them builds a future worth living in. As we reached the building, I saw Victor through a window, gesturing excitedly while teaching. He looked happy, actually, genuinely happy. I pulled out my phone and took a picture, not for social media or documentation, just for me. A reminder of how far we'd all come. That night, I wrote in the journal I'd kept since the beginning. They said I was 50 and would never be as successful as my younger brother. They were right. I'm not like him. I didn't build success on exploitation or image. I built it on values, on sustainability, on believing that broken people and broken systems can both be repaired. Success isn't the noise they make when you win. It's the silence that follows when you forgive. It's the gardens that grow from burned ground. It's the family you rebuild from the ashes of the one that failed you. Would I have forgiven them without making them live their lesson? No. They needed to understand what they'd done, what it felt like to be small, invisible, dismissed. But would I make them live it longer? Also no, because at some point, justice has to transform into grace. Punishment has to become teaching. Revenge has to become redemption. They said I'd never be successful. They were right, because success isn't what I became. It's who I helped them become. It's the lives changed at the academy. It's the second chances that became first successes. It's the family that broke and learned how to heal. That's not success. That's legacy. And that's enough. Please subscribe, like, and share for more. Thanks.